Investors Education Series. And today, what are we discussing, Mr. Charles?
Well, there's been a lot of discussion on it, but I just think today we should just look at it. It also comes under personal finance. Mortgage, that's our topic for today.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, so but before I start that topic, I will ask my usual question that I normally ask investors. And I'm also going to ask some more questions because we just have to keep asking questions. Do you have enough money? Are you spending enough time with your family and friends? Do you come home from your job full of life? Do you have enough time to participate in things you believe are worthwhile? If you were laid off your job, will you see it as an opportunity? Are you satisfied with the contributions you have made to the world? Are you at peace with money? Does your job reflect your values? Do you have enough savings to see you through 6 months of normal living expenses? Is your life whole? Do all the parts, the pieces, your job, your expenditure, your relationship, your values, do they all fit together? And of course, have you written a will? Yes, interestingly, before we go into our topic, I think I was listening to one show somewhere and people were calling to talk about their relationship with money. And you could see that if any one of them speaks, it's reflecting their personality. So people are arrogant when it comes to money. Some people just want to have money and to become arrogant. But again, some persons have those traits already. But when money now comes, it's now bring it out for everybody to see. So for me, money is an expression of life. And we should have the right attitude to money. We should not make money our master. Money should be our slave. Because for money as a master is very tyrannical. But as a slave or as a servant, it works very well for you. Yes, I will also ask some new set of questions again so that we'll continue to stretch our mind and to stimulate it. One, just answer these questions for me at your private time. What are your 3 most important goals in life right now? What are your 3 most important goals in life right now? You can write it down. What are your 3 most pressing problems right now? What are your 3 most pressing problems right now? Describe the ideal outcome you desire from a problem facing you right now. What are the things? What one thing will you dare to attempt if you knew you will not fail? What do you really want to do with your life? These are thought-provoking question. You should take your time. When you meditate, you look at those questions. I'm going to repeat the questions maybe tomorrow or whenever we have the opportunity, we'll do that. But for today, our topic is mortgage. Now, when somebody is in business and you need money, you go to your bank to borrow money. Is that also?
Yes.
Now, when you go to your bank and you want them to lend you money, the collateral you are using for that loan, it's a property, it's a house. That is mortgage. So mortgage is just simply telling any financial institution, it might be a mortgage bank, it might be a microfinance bank, it might be a commercial bank, I have seen this property and I want you to finance the purchase of this property for me. That is mortgage. Now, how does mortgage work? Because if you ask the average Nigerian, do a survey, they will tell you don't understand what is mortgage are, that mortgage does not even operate in Nigeria. But we have seen a couple of people that we know who go abroad, and before you know, they tell you they have a council house. All these are bought through mortgage. It is very rare to see people pay cash for property. They do what they call a down payment. If the value of the property is going for, let me use another example, let's say it's going for 15 million. You can do a down property of 10%, 1.5 million. And the balance will be spread over a period of time. Usually, we have 10-year mortgage, 20-year mortgage, even 30-year mortgage. And you can see that the way it is structured not only for workers, civil servants, it's also structured for business people. Now, I have also discovered that it is a problem most workers. And if you trace some of this fraud, financial crime that we'll see, at the end of the day, you say, oh, the man bought 2-3 properties. Everything is traced to, they want to acquire property. Imagine somebody who has put in 20, 30 years in service and is living in a government apartment. Do you know that at the end of every month, they deduct the housing allowance?
Of course, yes. Yes.
And now, there could be a scheme that we call rent to own. If he is living in that government property and you have said 30 years, the rents could be payment for that property. And after 30 years, he should have been able to pay up for that property and it becomes his own as he retires. But we don't have those kind of scheme operating in the civil service. And that leads to a lot of problems. But thank God, for a federal mortgage bank, through the federal government, have set up what they call rent to own. I don't know how practical it is right now, but take the service people, for the military people, for example. They stay inside the barrack. They cannot remain there. And they deduct their housing allowance every month if you are living inside the barrack. So you can see it's a disservice to them. At the end of 30 years, you must have deducted so much from their salary in terms of housing allowance, and the property does not become their own at the end of the day. And you see a lot of service personnel having issues because you must have shelter, housing over your head. It is one of the basic necessities of life, just like air, food. The next thing is shelter. We're not talking of housing because there's a difference between housing and shelter. Shelter is just having a roof over your head where the elements will not disturb you when it is raining or there are other weather conditions. Now, when you now talk of housing, specifically affordable housing, you can't tell me a civil servant, his total package, maybe everything is about 5 million, and you are saying the house he staying, you want to sell the house to him, you should go and bring 50 million. A government, we had those questions, and government had to come down in some of the valuation of those properties. I'll give a very typical example. Those of civil servants who were living in government houses in the federal government estate in Festac, they were now told to go and meet their bank to arrange a mortgage. But how are you going to pay your mortgage? It's not from your salary and your allowances. Okay, so they had to bring down some of the value of those property. So for a 2-bedroom, maybe at that time was going for about 5 million, maybe for a 3-bedroom, maybe 8 million and all that. Okay, so if you want workers to perform very well. The workers should, at the end of the day, believe that I'm going to have a roof under my head where I can stay. His mission ended, he came back. He was not retired. But he said because of that experience, he had to move his things out of the barrack and decided to get another accommodation outside the barrack. And fortunately for him, when the next list of promotion came, he was promoted. That so-called provost that you were talking about. Get that was the barrack and moved all these things, and he continued. As we speak, he's still serving and looking at what is happening.
Of course.
So they know that anything happens to them, this is how the faith they are also going to suffer. So we should look at accommodation and housing for whether it's a civil servant, a business person, as a top priority. How can this be made very easy and simple? And that's why the government came up with the Nigerian, Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, where workers will have to save about 2.5% of their basic salary on a monthly basis towards saying how they can acquire property. And a decree was even promulgated as at that time, 1992, which was called the NHF Act of 1992. That is NHF, National Housing Fund. You must be a contributor to that fund. And the fund is domiciled with the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. So after you have saved some amount of money there, you can now approach your mortgage bank. Of course, open an account with your mortgage bank. Now, Federal Mortgage Bank will tell you for you to access that fund that you need to do what they call your equity contribution. Yes. If you, and maybe you have seen a property that you want to buy. The property is 10 million. They will tell you you have to have 1 million in your account. That's for the mortgage bank. The mortgage bank has had a relationship with you. Now, there are requirements you now have to submit to the mortgage bank for them to now package you and apply for that Federal Mortgage Bank loan. That's the NHF. So, we're not saying how much are civil servants being paid, or government workers that you want to make them to have that kind of savings in their mortgage bank. However, with the contributions they have also made, every month 2.5% is being deducted. But what is the cost of this housing? The average flat today that you can see, maybe a 2-bedroom, will be going for 15 million, as the case may be. And of course, you also have developers.
Yes, with their own agenda.
With their own agenda. Developers want to get their money because they will tell you it is loan they took in acquiring this land and building this prototype flat. So they want to get their money as quickly as possible. However, there are some arrangement between the mortgage bankers, the developers, and of course, Federal Mortgage Bank. But if you ask me personally, I will tell you that the process is bedecked with a lot of fraud. Because some persons who have qualified, made their equity contributions, have been able to meet all the requirements, are still not giving this loan. We're also going to try to see how we can get a mortgage banker to come and tell us, because I've attended a seminar where most of the mortgage bankers were really, because investors spoke, a worker, and he said, in fact, they are in their workplace, they have not seen any person that benefited from this Federal Mortgage Bank loan. And they are all contributing. And of course, the Federal Mortgage bankers that were there defended their position that they can only give you this loan if you come through your mortgage bankers. And the mortgage bankers are saying, yes, we must ensure that you have all the requirements. What are these requirements? You must show evidence that you are a contributor to the scheme. You must show that your tax clearance and everything must be there. Then they now say for the property that they want to finance, you must show them that the documentation for that property is okay. And another requirement that you must meet. Now that when you do all that, the package, then you can now be given the loan. But again, we have seen cases where even after the loan has been given, of course, you cannot rule out the possibility of some of the properties not having proper documentation. And at the end of the day, there are issues. So what we are trying to say now is workers should be properly educated. The Federal Mortgage Bank, the mortgage bankers, and the workers' union themselves must need to come together and ensure that all the requirements that are required for each worker to qualify to have the mortgage loan should be made simple, explained to them. Because these are your workers. I am saying, you don't have to be a federal government worker as long as you work in an establishment that employ 5 to 7 persons, just like you do the pension contribution. It should also be made mandatory for them to do the NHF contribution. So mortgage is real, because I've also seen workers who benefited from the mortgage in Nigeria, but the process is too lengthy. The mortgage bankers, Federal Mortgage Bank, and of course the workers should come together, find a way of simplifying the process so that more and more Nigerian workers, whether in the public or private sector, can have access to this mortgage loan through the Federal Mortgage Bank. I also appeal to the management of the Federal Mortgage Bank. The bank should also be run as a professional federal mortgage bank. We have institutions similar to them outside the country, and we see how and what they do to ensure that they deliver houses to the masses. Because you cannot be talking of affordable housing where the average worker cannot afford to stay in a 2 or 3 bedroom accommodation. When you say affordable housing, what do we mean? Affordable housing is simply saying the revenue, or let's say a civil servant, you earn 200,000 naira a month. You should not spend more than 1/3 of your salary on accommodation. So a person with 100,000 should Nigeria, we're having about 17 million housing deficits. But I even query that figure, because that figure is what they've been quoting some 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. So I'm sure that deficit will have expanded more. So we should be having nothing less than 25 million housing deficits. But the Minister of Housing, Works and Housing, was now saying we have no housing deficits. That what really happens is where did that statistics come from? They said the World Bank. He said they had to talk to World Bank. They said that it didn't come, they didn't emanate from them and all that. But yes, I share his views that we need to have proper data where people can plan. I agree with that. But we are saying, but what he was trying to say is, the man who comes to Lagos is living a big accommodation in his village. And then when he comes to Lagos, he gets a job, he's now willing to squat in the urban area. Now in the rural areas, there are no housing problem. I disagree with the Honorable Minister, with due respect. There are, when you say housing deficiency, in the country today. It also includes the urban areas and the rural areas. That young man is talking about, if the rural areas is well developed, there are job opportunities there, will he migrate to the urban areas? He will not migrate to the urban area. So it's an holistic problem. I should not say most people that come to the urban areas, they are living big accommodation in the villages before they come to Lagos or other city centers, maybe Ibadan, Port Harcourt, Kanu, Abuja, and all that. No, there is housing deficit in the country today, and that is why to even rent a property is now above the reach of the ordinary civil servant and even small business people. So there is a real housing problem because it's not affordable to the ordinary person today. Yes, if you go to highbrow areas, maybe in Abuja, Port Harcourt, Lagos, Ikoyi, and all that, you will see a lot of mansions that are
wasting away.
They are empty. Again, that brings me to the issue of we should look at mortgage as part of personal finance. Yes, people used to make that mistake in the past, and some few still do. Somebody, in fact, I've heard somebody who said, if you come to my village, you see my mansion in my village, but in Lagos here, he is living in a slum. In the face me, I face you, one-room apartment. Is it slap me, I slap you? What do they call it? Face me, I face you. And he's boasting and telling you in his village, he has a mansion. And that village, he goes maybe twice a year. Nobody is living there. He will even have to beg somebody to stay in that village mansion he's talking about. So you can see it's a misplaced priority. And that's why the minister is trying to tell us that he has a big accommodation in his village. When he comes to Lagos, he's squatting in a slum where there are no basic sanitation. In fact, even the Lagos Island here that we're even talking about, there are some houses that you don't have basic sanitation.
You say sanitation. That's why these days, just if there's downpour for like maybe 20 minutes, you can't even walk outside. The other day, the other day was something else on the island.
Friday.
Yes, last Friday, where people were inside their office working, and under 1 hour, their cars.
House of bed.
Yes.
So for me, that has to do with a lot of planning, drainage, and all that. So we should begin to look at mortgage as something that can really work in the country today. Moving forward, the Nigerian government even had to set up what we call NMRC, that is a mortgage refinance company. And if you have a mortgage with a mortgage bank, that is, you have seen a property, they have financed the property for you through, or yes, they finance the property for you, and you are paying regularly every month. Now, you can tell them to apply that, look, this mortgage, this is a risk asset. This customer has been very faithful in his repayment plan. So, that mortgage asset can be sold to this company, and they will take up the payments. Then the mortgage bank will have been freed. Then they can now have more funds to give credit to more other people. But what do? They tell you the mortgage rate at which they agree with the customer is about 27%. And the NMRC wants to take it maybe at 20%. The bank will feel that they are going to lose, so they will not want you to refinance that mortgage. So a lot of work still needs to be done in terms of awareness. The workers' union have a big role to play, NLC, TUC, and other. Then even the private sector, the road transport workers, they should also all come together with their cooperative, acquire property, acquire hectares of land, get the necessary documentation, put the infrastructure in place, so that when you build your estate, the people who are living there does not even need to send their children to far away school. Market will be there, schools will be there, and being private, Most of them can still walk around there, and we'll have decongestion. Everybody every morning. I call it an hostel arrangement. Everybody leave their hostel. They are coming to take lecture on the island. Then in the evening, everybody is going back.
Not everybody. There are some people that spend the whole week, then they only go on weekends.
Okay. Okay. So you can say that if they were walking close to where they are living, would they want to do that? So that's what we are saying. Housing is not just a roof under your head. The amenities surrounding those housing. The road should be well laid out. The drainage should be fine. There should be recreational facilities, market, motor park, and so that housing, because there is a correlation between your housing and your health. People who live in decent accommodation are usually healthy compared to people who live in slums. Have you passed through 10 mainland and you have seen that community there? Even not even 10 mainland, even just Echo Bridge. There is a community just under there. And all my life I've been in Lagos, it has been like that. At the city center, you have a slum. And you see people living on top of water. Poor sanitary conditions. Sewage, toiletry, and all that. Everything is very, very not hygienic. And people live in that kind of situation. 21st century Nigeria, oil producing nation. Country. In fact, those of us who even live in some parts of the Lagos outskirts, maybe Festac, do you know that Festac, according to United Nations survey, has gradually become a slum? And this is an estate that people pride. Oh, Festac. But if you come to Festac today, it has all the features of a slum. There are some areas I wouldn't want to mention here. Yes, it's a slum already. Because when it rains, you will see that issue of drainage problem. And at times you see sewage just leaking out and all that. Now we don't even know who is supposed to take care of it. Is it the Federal Housing Authority? Is it the local government? Or the residents themselves? And one other thing again that we also notice about housing, you discover that everybody is their water board. It's their electricity company. It's their security company. And every other thing just to make life meaningful to them. Take a typical block in first time. Maybe a block of 32 flats. Then you have the smaller one, 16 flats. Okay? Now, for the 16 flats, you have 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, 16 families. They will have 16 bore. For the 32 flats, you have 32 bore. You are destroying the earth. But again, the residents will tell you the water system is not working. They have to provide water for themselves. And you have wells that have been dug, and you have people who patronize this Merua. They call them Merua. They go and
fetch water in gallons
and bring. And are reliable. And most of those persons are usually foreigners. They're not even Nigerians who do all this. So what we are saying, mortgage should be seen as a personal finance, and a lot of education need to go into it so that workers, either in the private or public sector, will become aware and see how they can key in to the scheme. The requirement should be made as easy as possible. If you are working, they can confirm that this is where you are working, or this is your business, this is the turnover you make. You're able to assess your tax. Then you should be able to apply for this mortgage loan. It will go a long way in reducing some of the fraud we experience in government offices. Because I've said earlier, even in first time, you see a 2-bedroom, EFCC will come sealed. That the proceeds that was used to acquire this flat was fraudulent, was the financial crime. And I've seen so many flats like that, and you see FCC seal or whatever there. So you see that most people who commit 419 fraud is because they want to have housing for themselves. Of course, you know, the landlords, the way they operate, I don't even blame them, because they've used their sweat to build these houses, and everything they have is in that property. If you don't pay your rent regularly, they also will not be able to eat. So, but you can see them just increasing the rent every year. But what we are saying, if there is a supply of housing is more than the demand, then of course the prices can stabilize. So we are appealing to the minister, please look at the issues very well. Nigeria has a housing deficit. If I stay in the village and I get a job in the city, I cannot stay in the village and be coming to the city. I have to come. So I need to be provided that basic accommodation for me to stay and perform my job very well. In fact, if I even round up, if Abuja, people live in Karo, you know where is Karo? It's a settlement in Nasarawa State. And all the people who live in that place, beautiful houses, they work in the city center, Abuja. It is not supposed to be like that. Let's take this Lagos for example now. You can see the federal secretariat is dormant there. Why can't they convert it to accommodation, even if it is 1-bedroom flats? So civil servants or even bankers who walk around there can have that kind of accommodation, affordable, and you will see that people will live close to where they are working. So mortgage, like I said, we'll try and get a mortgage banker that will come and tell us the state of the mortgage industry in the country today, because we believe the mortgage industry, the mortgage bank have a major role to play in terms of making housing delivery a reality for most workers, both in the private and public sector. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Charles, for that session. Also, that wraps up the BSR After Business Show. Do join us at 4 p.m. for the Nigerian stock market and the